There are things that are the essence of spiritual life. And one of them is service, the spirituality of the other, the unconditional love through service. Give, give, give. Whether you see it, whether you don't see it, whether you feel it, whether you don't feel it, doesn't matter. It's going to expand your inner self.
Welcome to Life with a Lama Healer. Today we have part 2 of our conversation with Alfredo Sfeir-Younis, where he'll be sharing more of his stories of life with Lama Gangchen and the incredible way that he integrated, the Dharma and the spiritual teachings and Lama Gangchen's wisdom into his very busy life and successful life and career as a diplomat with the United Nations and the World Bank. So we'll hear more of Alfredo's pearls of wisdom. So thanks for joining us, and please now welcome Alfredo Sfeir-Younis for part 2. We're really excited about this podcast about the life of the great Tibetan Lama, Lama Gangchen Tulku Rinpoche, who was born in 1941 in Tibet and trained by many of the greatest Tibetan masters. He traveled to the West in the 1980s, bringing with him the inner peace teachings of the Buddha. Lama was one of the greatest living humanitarians and spiritual masters of our time, and part of an unbroken lineage dating all the way back 2,500 years to Shakyamuni Buddha. So our vision in creating this podcast is really to preserve and share the remarkable stories about Lama Gangchen's extraordinary life. We'll interview senior students and longtime followers who worked with Lama Gangchen, traveled with him, studied with him, witnessed and experienced his incredible healings and miracles. So these stories, they're really precious jewels and inspire us to really see what's possible when we follow the inner peace teachings of the Buddha. So it's a real honor and privilege to bring these stories to you and the methods that really help us to reframe our sufferings, which brings us more inner calm, the ability to be more in the present moment with less stress and anxiety and fear, and experience more joy in our life and more peaceful in our life and more meaning really in our life. So please stay tuned for our conversations from this very, very rich spiritual heritage coming out of Tibet, and the incredibly joyful, inspiring, mind-blowing, funny, touching stories about the remarkable life of a Lama healer, our beloved Lama Gangchen. Life with a Lama healer. I've said this before on a few other podcasts, but I want to say this again for our listeners, just to simplify this, because it's we hear about peace and we hear about living a calm life, a life without violence and learning how to relax. But it's very difficult to achieve this. Every time Rinpoche would see my husband, Rick, he would say to him, every single time, he would say to him, relax and enjoy. But over time, he actually had the realization of what it means to relax the mind, relax the push, relax the driving, relax the stress, the anxiety, the fear, and then learn to really enjoy his life. He was always working and his mind was always working. He never really enjoyed his life. And so now, after many years of hearing this and practicing and realizing these two very simple words, but so hard to do, to relax and really enjoy our life. So Lama had this phenomenal capacity to help us to realize these things. So you're saying this so brilliantly, but I wanted to kind of slow it down and for our listeners to take in that peace is not just a word that we talk about and that Lama was always talking about, but he actually, by following his practices and following his teachings, we were able to actually realize it in our own life. It's a work in progress, we're all a work in progress of levels of peace, but, really tasting it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let me jump to the last one, which is the most delicate one, to make it very clear to the audience that this is me speaking, not Lama speaking. I think one of the great contributions of Lama Gangchen has been the preservation of the spiritual foundation of China. In our lives, generally, being big times, big macro things, big planetary things, or or minute things, we play this game of accepting or running away from. I like it, I stay. I don't like it, I go. Yeah, you must see this in your profession all the time. Look, I don't like this company, I go to the next one, I go this, da, da, da.
Attraction or aversion.
Lama knew that after the communist revolution, we could not do this with Buddhism in China. It was not a matter of I like or dislike. He was not a politician. He was not involved in politics anywhere. I say it because I was there in many countries. He never intervened in the political affairs of any country. But he knew the undercurrent, spiritual spine cord of each country. When he went to Venezuela, he understood what was that spine cord. When he went to Colombia, when he came to Chile, when he went to Sri Lanka, the United States, when we did silence meditation for world peace, he knew the nature of the spine cord, the spiritual spine cord of the country. He knew the spiritual spine cord of China, and he maintained this non-stopping interest in giving a minimum standard to Buddhism in China, to the point that the Chinese government declared publicly that Buddhism is the religion of the state, which before never had that.
Yeah, communism was no religion.
Exactly. The top of the top Buddhist of the world to China for more than a month. And I saw the film. Lama Gangchen was invited. He was one of the top. He was one of the primus inter pares of this thing. So the world will benefit from a softer heart of China.
Yes. Well, this is their history too. Buddhism is their history for thousands of years, right?
Correct. But how do you bring it to the point where public policy generates its own self-awareness about the spirituality of this public policy? And he knew that he had to pay that time in China. And he went to China many times. I was one of the fortunate who went with him to Tibet, and he would say, Alfredo this, Alfredo that, watch this, see that. And I think the world will benefit, or maybe it's already benefiting, not from this country that goes from communism to hidden capitalism. No, there is a value system that begins to resonate. And China, when China becomes the top of the world in terms of leadership, by mere numbers and by reality, then this China will be more compassionate, more loving. He was willing to put his whole self to go to temples, through temples, through temples, through gompas,
Yes. Giving prayers, pujas, his holy energy.
bring Westerners like you and me to be witness of this reality of China, which has been hidden and separated from this image that someone wants to give.
Alfredo, can you tell us is any experience that you had when you were traveling in Tibet, that you had this experience of awe or just this like miracle power of Lama and the environment of Tibet? Because Tibet is such a beautiful and very, very, very special place. Any experiences that you had that stand out for you?
Many experiences in Tibet and Mongolia. I asked myself why Lama would be so interested. And since the interview is about me, I speak in first person, but it's not only me, all of us. Why Lama was so interested in that I have certain experiences. When he would say, go to Gangchen monastery with Gabriela alone and meditate. Forget about the group, just go from Chigatse to Gangchen.
To his rebuilt monastery, Gangchen Monastery.
And I realized afterwards, but I have an interesting anecdote about my first trip to Tibet with Lama. We arrived in Chigatse, to me, incredible. Being Tibet was my desire, my dream. And I was in Tibet looking at everything, getting everything into me and so on. And then Lama says to the group, tomorrow we will go out at 8 o'clock in the morning to Gangchen Monastery. Wow. Finally, I'll be in Gangchen Monastery. It was like Yeah, I don't know, a chimera,
Waiting.
Yeah, So I was so nervous that I didn't sleep much that night in the hotel. And I was there at 7:15 in the morning at the lobby.
Like a little kid, ready to go.
Yeah. Anyways, 7:15, nobody at the lobby. 7:30, nobody at the lobby. 7:45, no bus, no one at the lobby. 8 o'clock, no bus. 9 o'clock, no bus, nothing. I said, well, I was upset. I was very upset. This thing was at 8 o'clock in the morning and nobody's here. It's not only no bus, there was nobody.
Yeah.
So I go raging up to Lama's room. And I enter and I said, Lama, what happened? Wasn't it at 8 o'clock? He said, yes, it was. But I changed it.
Oh.
I said, Lama, but nobody told me. Yes, nobody told you. So why are you so upset? He said, I will teach you about time. So he gave me this secret mantra. He said, how many days are left going around Tibet? 21 days we have left. I said, you will have to repeat this mantra at least 100,000 times. Okay. So I went to my room waiting for someone to call me that the bus is coming. So in like 2 hours, I did 108. So I did one mala. And I say, wow, I did one mala. I was very happy. And then a cold shower comes to me. I said, yeah, but you have 99,000, left. No, this is impossible. I cannot do it. And then after 2 or 3 days, I did 1,000 in going, coming, and doing the tours and everything. Then I said, yes, I did 1,000 times this mantra. And I said, but I have 99,000 to go, So I said, I cannot fail Lama. No more days, no more nights, no more dinners, no more time. I devote myself completely. And since they will put me in jeeps with other monks, Lama will always take care of me. Always, always. His love was immense. So you go with the Lamas. Since I didn't know Tibetan, it didn't bother me that they will speak inside I will just be
doing their mantra.
And I learned for the first time that any time, any situation where I feel that time is playing against me, I remember the story and I pray mantras. I destroy time with the mantra. I repeated that mantra 120,000 times. And I tell you, when I was in 60,000, as soon as I will repeat the first part of the mantra, I will enter into the space to watch how the mantra worked, how it do what it was supposed to do. I came out of 120,000 and I decided to invite a big group of the Sangha plus Lama Michel to the Sheraton in Peking, in Beijing, for a final go, because next day I had to come back and go to the World Bank. I don't know where I was. And I said, how ridiculous is to speak? How absurd is to speak? The energy that I'm spending in just explaining myself, expressing myself, projecting myself is an energy that will never come back. It's a wasted energy. So I never, after that, have complained about a bus being late. I just need my mala.
He had such an incredible, skillful means of teaching us something that we needed to learn. Incredible.
So then the other anecdote in Tibet was he wanted me to really pay attention to Ganden monastery. And I said, well, I said, you will find out. And the bus goes up and 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 up.
Such a beautiful road to go up to that monastery, right? Where Lama Tsongkhapa house.
I arrived in Ganden and it was like, wow, I've been here.
Yes. The energy is so powerful there.
And a very old Lama comes and said something in Tibetan. I didn't understand anything. He said, just come, took my hand and separated me from the group. I had never organized this. Lama knew this, but I didn't know this. And he made me to do kora with him.
With the monk.
The monk. Very old monk.
Mm.
They were like 2 or 3 miles. It was not little kora. You just go around this big monastery. And the purpose of the monk, what he wanted to show me, is the materialization, how meditation materializes in your surroundings. He didn't need to say anything. We went around like 100 meters. There was a big rock with a dark spot. So he said, look, I don't know why it was so that important. I thought it was the color of the rock. We go another 200 meters. It was like a little bump, but like rubber. It was not the same quality of the rock. It was something that was growing from the rock. And he will say every time, beside the rock, there was a little cave where some monk will meditate. We went there, and this was like a cylinder coming up with very nice design. To make the story short, in the end of it, he showed me a Buddha that finally the Buddha statue had come from the rock.
Had grown from the rock.
Yeah. So he said meditation transformed the environment.
These kind of miracles that we see in these holy places.
It's amazing.
Where the Tara appears or the Buddha appears, or in that temple in China where the Avalokiteshvara statue exudes nectar coming from the statue.
Amazing.
Incredible, right?
He did this with me many, many times. For example, he did in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, we'll go to this conference, and then he said, this afternoon, we don't come to conference. We go Kalinija temple. So when we came to Kalinija temple, I didn't get too much what was happening. He made me do rituals with the water and to bathe the Buddhas and so on and blah, blah. Next day, we don't come back in the afternoon. We go to Kalinija temple. So I said, Lama, but yesterday we went to Kalinija temple. No. We need to go again to Kalinija temple. He will bring me 3 or 4 times until I self-realized why he was showing me Kalinija temple. It was a way to awaken. He will awaken me by these images that probably memory will finally capture. Another thing of Tibet. One time my daughter got a scholarship to go to Berkeley for a semester to add to her courses in architecture in Chile. She was in the Catholic University of Santiago doing architecture, and she got a scholarship to have a semester there to be with other teachers and so on and so forth. I had to go to China. And at the time, these were group visas. There was not now individual visa. So Cosi has added me to this group visa, and so I had to be in Peking at the airport at such and such time. I said I will go and see my daughter Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I will fly Saturday to Beijing. So one day, my daughter said, Dad, Friday, the teacher, the professor on urban art will bring us to the city and show us the city from the point of view of architecture, Auckland. And I asked him whether you can accompany us, the students. And the professor said yes. Well, the professor was a 35-year-old young boy. So that morning I said to my daughter, stop eating in your dormitory. It's the same breakfast. I invite you to breakfast on the campus, Berkeley campus. So I went there, and we had breakfast. We left for the tour, and the tour finished. It was a fantastic tour. I mean, the kid knew so much about Auckland, and the architect of Auckland, the 1920s, and anyways. So since I am the oldest here, I'll invite all for dinner, and in a way to thank all of you and the professor for allowing me to be part of the tour. So my daughter said yes. So I said, give me my chola, my bag. My daughter said, I don't have your bag. What do you mean you don't have your bag? I said, I don't have your bag. My bag? Where is my bag?
Oh, wow.
I have all the money, all the tickets, passport, credit cards, everything. I get to the place and I got crazy. The first thing that I lost in my mind was the money, which were several thousands of euros. It disappeared. I said, I can get that. Okay, I lost it. I can get that somehow, somewhere. I go to the places where we had breakfast. They had this food court, so I went there, closed, nobody's there. And there was one open, and there was a Filipino student. And I said, have you seen a bag like this and that? And he said, no, it's very difficult to find because you left it on your chair somehow, hanging from the back of your chair. And here there are so many panhandlers, you will not find it. So I was leaving, and he calls me back. He said, what is the color of your passport? So I said, it's blue with golden. He said, I have this bag. It was my bag. So he said, I have not touched it. Please take your passport out of your bag. and show me your passport from Chile. And then I go and look at my money, whether the money was gone. The money was intact. Nobody has touched money. So I said to my daughter, darling, this money is not mine. I need to give it to people. And I begin to give to the people on the street, $5, €5 bills and so on. And my daughter at one point get into panic and said, Dad, the police will come and ask you, what the hell are you doing?
Are you crazy?
So I stopped next day to Beijing. And I went around with Lama into Tibet and so on until the end of the trip. So that night, it was very emotional for me because we were going to go to Ganden to end the whole thing. And I went to see Lama to say thank you for the trip and everything. And I found Lama counting money. So I said, Lama, what are you doing? He said to me, we need to give something to the monks. They have been praying for us all these days so we don't have accidents, we don't have diseases, illnesses, and so on and so forth. So in retribution, we need to do this offering. So I said, how much is the offering? He said, so many thousand euros. So I said, I give it. No, Alfredo, because we always were very careful between the two of us about money. We didn't want to have these things that, in a sense, pollute somehow the relationship. I said, Lama, no, Lama. I have exactly what you need. So I told the story. And I said, the first thing I lost was the money. This money is not mine. I need to give it. So I said, in that case, you give it. So he called one of his nephews and he said, take Alfredo tomorrow morning to a bank in this little town and change it in ones and then bring it back so he can be the one who is offering for all of us. So I go with Wancho, to this bank. Anyways, as you know, in that time, I don't know now, there were no coins in China. They're all bills, paper bills.
Yeah, and to the monks, you need to give small bills.
So we came back in a taxi with a huge basket of money. So we arrived to the temple. The temple had these huge gates, these huge doors with these metal rings to bang the doors so people. So I said to Wancho, we are late. We lost the ceremony. He said, no, they are waiting for you. So what do you mean? No. You just answer, it is me. That's all you need to know. When they say something in Tibetan, you say it is me. So in English, I banged the door and somebody yelled, who is there? So Wancho said, the person who is going to go the offerings, please open the temple. And this door begins to open, full of incense. Thousands of monks all began chanting. I was there distributing that money at least 2.5 hours.
Wow.
It was the most beautiful gift that Lama ever gave me to do that. And once he said 5, 10, 200, he knew the ranks of the different monks and the different situations.
And what to give them. Wow. So, Alfredo, if you were to give some advice to other spiritual seekers, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's on the spiritual path?
The first thing I will tell him that there is nothing to be attained. Don't follow, don't go behind, don't chase anything. The moment you decide to start, so I want to be enlightened, you are out of the way to enlightenment. Second, the Buddha said that everything that surges has a perfect correlate with a state of consciousness. So if this paper surges, there is a consciousness, a quality of consciousness that makes it happen. This coffee, the same. The same happens with all the virtues, with all the causes and conditions of life. So, if this is true, and I believe it's true, then you need to focus not on this thing, but on consciousness. But you don't need any precondition to start your spiritual life, not the spiritual path, your spiritual life. And the Buddha has been, and the Lama Gangchen, of course, has been completely clear on this. You don't need to pass any exams, any previous conditions to be able to say, I am living my spiritual life. There are things that are the essence of the spiritual life. And one of them, for example, that you can start right now, is service, the spirituality of the other, the unconditional love through service. Give. You don't need to go to school, you don't do nothing. And what is going to happen is that the impact of seva to do the service is going to expand your inner self. Whether you see it, whether you don't see it, whether you feel it, whether you don't feel it, it doesn't matter. But this is the fulfillment of the first spiritual law that says every state of being occupies space. Love occupies space. Compassion occupies space. But also the negative dimensions of life occupy space. For example, anger. Fortunately, and I laugh at this because it's one of the little things that I have accomplished in this lifetime, anger is very small now in my life. Before, it was everywhere. And anger occupied my space like this, like in a second. I would say, basta, stop. There are many expressions that one uses to say my spiritual space is completely filled and I have nothing else in it. I don't want anything else. I want to maintain my anger against you and da 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 da. So, the first thing, there is nothing to attain because bodhicitta, which is the expression of your Buddhahood for the other, is already in yourself in a maximum expression. And there are practices that make that bodhicitta to be more apparent to you, more physical, more clear with this mind of a human being. The second thing I will tell this person is that the first teaching of the Buddha is fundamental for any other teaching of the Buddha. And the Buddha says that the main source of suffering is ignorance. And investigating this phrase in many other sutras, there was one time that one of the disciples said, okay, ignorance of what? What is the ignorance you're talking about? And the Buddha says, not knowing the reality like it really is. So then I studied a lot and I said, well, I am not satisfied with this. It's too big for me. And I found a sutra where the Buddha speaks about the three forms of ignorance. So I will tell this person very quickly these three forms of ignorance, and this person should sit down and say, okay, where is mine, or the most apparent one, and work on that. The first form of ignorance is the ignorance of I don't know. There is a space, I never in there, I have no idea. So if you ask me, what color is the sun? I say, I don't know. I never have a cognitive experience. I never had the possibility to manifest this cognitive experience through words, through thinking. And so I don't know. Now, that is a beautiful form of ignorance because you can fulfill or fill up that space with knowledge and wisdom. However, the problem of that is that you are subject to the paradox of consciousness. And the paradox of consciousness says, I am not aware that I am not aware. I am not aware that I am not aware. So how in the hell I know that I am filling this gap? So that's why teachers are good. So I tell my disciples, look, I am like the Waze. If you know where you're going, you drive your car. But if you don't know, turn on the Waze, and the Waze says, half a mile to right, 1 mile to left. But I am not the driver. I am the Waze. Be aware, I am not the driver. I cannot become the driver of a karmic path that is not mine. That is a no-no, despite of the fact that many gurus in this world, and I will not name them, are desperate to be the drivers of your spiritual path. This is not on. The maximum that I can do whenever I have the ability, because I have very little abilities in my life, is to be the Waze. I know this, you are not in the right town, you don't know how to get to the bar, I'll tell you how to get to the bar.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
That is the first form of ignorance. The second form of ignorance is the ignorance that surges from being sitting on the wrong hypothesis of life. It's like I have an ideology. I am from the left or from the right. I'm a Republican or the Democrat. I am business-oriented or I am spiritual-oriented. And I sit there, and the only thing that sinks into myself is what is in accord with my hypothesis that I'm not willing to change. That is 99% of the people. That the people don't listen to you except when it supports what you are thinking, what you think is right. Otherwise, you disregard, you discard. The problem with this, and I think is the most difficult form of ignorance, is that it requires a negation. You have to negate reality and say, before it was like this, now it's not like this. It's this path, this bridge that one needs to cross from it is to it is not. It's a very, very complex and demanding task.
Yeah, and it's experiential.
Yeah, it makes you insecure. It makes you with lots of uncertainties and so on, because I don't know that side. And the third form of ignorance for the Buddha is when you live your life without knowing the structural laws sustaining that life. So you live like everything is permanent when everything is impermanent. You live like as if everything is independent when everything is interdependent, like dependent origination and many of the principles of the Buddha. So that one is with a good teacher inside your mind or a teacher like you can advance fast in getting to know these structural laws of life. So that is the second thing I will tell this person about his spiritual path. First, don't chase anything. And secondly, focus on the main source of ignorance. Because if you keep not seeing reality like really is, you will keep suffering. And the third thing I will tell him is that spirituality is an individual and a collective endeavor. Thus, since it is also a collective endeavor, you must do something for community. That is the importance of Sangha. Sangha has that importance, not that we are a group, our Sangha. No, is that without the Sangha, your path, your speed is much slower. And the Buddha spent a lot of time explaining this particular issue in at least 200 sutras. The lamrims, the stages of the path, which are the laws of engagement of Buddhist communities, deal with this issue of the collective. I think Lama was an exemplar being of understanding this collective engine, this collective energy, this collective reality as fundamental to our individual reality. So the Lama Gangchen World Peace Foundation, all these charities that Lama has, because the other is a fundamental piece. In terms of Western language, it does not exist individual salvation. That is an oxymoron. It does not exist individual enlightenment per se. And this is a discussion I have had with many Buddhist groups. Of course, there are different views. I have my personal view, but I want to say that if what you are doing, what you are knowing is difficult, it has a lot of friction, that's not your spiritual path. The spiritual path is a non-friction, not difficulties. I say not friction, in a sense that you are moving back. You need to go forward, and that is the way to identify the spiritual path. I identify my spiritual path through imitating Lama Gangchen. Imitation of someone who you believe is you, not me. That you believe is an enlightened being, then I want to be in the enlightening path, which is unique and equal for everyone, the path. So when Lama Gangchen went to Tibet and he will look left, I will look left. I don't know what he was looking at. I pick up the rocks that his shoes will touch, and I have on my altar, many rocks that have been touched by me. That's me. That's my relationship with my guru. Someone else might say it's not your guru. Well, okay. Or if you think that yourself are your own guru, bienvenido.
By all the holy beings' blessing,
by all the holy beings' blessings,
violent sicknesses be transformed into non-violent sicknesses. Sickness come big, come small, small come disappear in emptiness or peacefully.
Big sicknesses become small and disappear in emptiness peacefully and quickly.
By inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
By the inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
By the power of the truth.
By the power of the truth.
Violence news.
Be transformed
into non-violent news.
Be transformed into non-violence news.
News for beautiful, peaceful, joyful, good news for now and forever.
In news, they may be transformed in news, peaceful, blissful, joyful, and positive now and forever.
By inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
By the inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessings.
By the power of the truth.
By the power of the truth.
Financial problem.
Financial problems.
No financial problem.
Be transformed in not financial problem.
So financial come true through increasing luck, beginning into full moon.
May the financial increasing like a full moon.
Like beginning moon to full moon.
Yeah, from the beginning, from the black moon to the full, completely full moon.
By inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
By the inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
Love and compassion.
Love and compassion.
Harmony and joy.
Harmony and joy.
New bliss and emptiness.
New bliss and emptiness.
Physical and mental healthy.
Physically and mentally healthy.
Inner and environment peace.
Inner and outer environment peace.
Inner peace and world peace.
Inner peace and world peace.
By inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
By the inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
Inner peace is the most solid foundation for world peace.
Inner peace is the most solid foundation for world peace.
By inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessing.
By the inner scientist Shakyamuni Buddha's blessings.
Many times I thought, I would love to know what Lama's thinking at this moment or in a situation. I'd love to know what his thoughts are. And it was really interesting when we interviewed Simona from the United Peace Voices, and she runs the Dharma Center in Bologna. And she met Lama in the 90s and traveled all around the world with him. Just incredible stories that she had. She said when she took refuge in Lama because she saw the qualities that he had and she wanted to be like him. She wanted to have those qualities, of love and compassion and this incredible wisdom and always helping people. But I thought that was such an interesting perspective that she took refuge in him because she wanted to become like him. Isn't that beautiful? For many of us, I think we had this experience.
One time Lama wanted me to be devoted my life to spirituality in the world. Not the spirituality of the monastery, not the spirituality of initiations and so on and so on. No. He wanted me to be out there, and so he made a ceremony in Premeno, somewhere in Premeno, where there is a statue of Garibaldi. So he brought like 40 people, and he said, "You are the world healer. You are Zamlin Chodapken." And then he said, "Well, it will depend on what this pomegranate will do." So he takes this fruit, this pomegranate. So he said, if it splits, then you are. If it doesn't split, when I throw it, you are not.
Always having this playful element, right?
So he takes this pomegranate and throw it up high.
Splits all over.
So whenever I arrive, after that, I arrive into Albagnano and so on, he will say, Samlin Chodapken, how is Samlin Chodapken, world healer. But he gave me that as an incentive, as an inner incentive to truly become that, not to leave it like something that I already was. No, I was not, but he put me on that path, that healing the planet for world peace was this fundamental thing. And I would like to say two things. One is Lama will do things like you were saying before, that he left you in the front and then he goes so you can take over. One night I was in his old house, not the old house, but the building that collapsed with the earthquake in Kathmandu, where the school was and so on. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and Lama comes to my bedroom, knocked the door and said, "Get up. The mother of the lady who organized the house died, and I want to teach you something." So I quickly, put my tunics on and so on, and I went with him. We arrived to this house, and they were wrapping the body of this lady, and I was shocked. To me, it was shocking to see like a mummy, and the husband, he was smiling. He was happy. I said, God, this guy knows something that I don't know. I know sadness, and he knows joy out of passing away. And then Lama said, okay, let's go with the body and do a kora around the stupa. What? Yeah, let's do kora. So Lama and I were pulling this thing, this body, on the ground. Then he came a lorry, a big truck, and the guy said, throw it to me. So they take the body and threw it up to the lorry. And I was shocked. So he said, look, we will go to the crematorium, and you go with the guys who speak English, and I go with the ones who speak Tibetan. I remember vividly, it was a small car, red, Suzuki or something red. This was like 3 o'clock in the morning. They take me an hour and a half outside Kathmandu, for this crematorium. I arrived there. Lama is not there. I said, maybe Lama is coming in a few minutes. Lama is not there. Lama never came. I was left alone to learn about my inner contradictions about body. So then I went back home, around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. I go to his bedroom. Lama, what did you need to know? So you needed to learn this. You needed to know what was you are feeling inside yourself. When you see the husband burning the wood to burn his wife, and he gives his last kiss to her.
Yes, in the face of death.
And this was a big lesson that took me a couple of years to really, really digest.
Incredible. Really different worldview than what we have in the West. This way of approaching and relating to death and dying and impermanence. But so helpful, so incredibly helpful when we understand this. And we have so much less suffering and more, understanding of the cycle of life, right?
The last thing, being an economist, you have your terminology. Being a psychologist, being a coach, each of us have some social grammars through which we project we are. So I say I'm coughing, and the doctor said it's pneumonia caldita, and they have their own ways to express the same phenomenon in different ways because language is identity. And this is something that in your profession might be useful. Language expresses identity. And this is very powerful because Lama gave me some sentences that make my identity more robust. One of them was, and also is to make the impossible possible. It's not a phrase. This is a huge paradigm. She said, that is my definition of miracle. When you make something possible that you felt was impossible, that is the miracle. Second phrase, he said, Alfredo, I think the World Bank needs to make intelligent investments. And I remember it pressed me so much, the phrase. I said, Lama, what are intelligent investments? Those are investments that as a result, all human beings, sentient beings, and nature gets closer to their enlightenment.
I love that. I love this, make intelligent investments.
It's incredible. The other phrase, which is very important, is inner scientific research. We're talking about the time that to say these things, people said, what is this inner scientific research? Is when Lama tells me, it is my meditative experience that tells me such and such. So he said that for me to say the same thing, I need to practice well, not just practice. You need to do the right meditation and in the right way and in the right timing and so on. And it is this quality, the quality of this action that will enable you to say, in my meditative experience, I say this and that.
Yeah, which is so beautiful about Buddhism is that it's our experience is what we lead from, is what we live from. Not just reading about or intellectually knowing about these concepts or having it be a concept. It's our experience.
But the sentence when he said inner scientific researchers, that is to say, you have to have a method. It's not just what comes out. It's like Vipassana, In Vipassana, you have a method to investigate the mind. It's not any method. It's one method, very powerful method. There are many other methods, but it's the same thing when people speculate about the meaning of mindfulness, which to me is very pity. It's a pity that people just say things about mindfulness that do not come from the original text of the Buddha. So then you are making it up, what mindfulness is all about. And that's not on, because I believe in the inner science of the Buddha more than my inner science, more than the inner science of anyone else. So what property I take of changing the teachings of the Buddha? Actually, the thing that frightened me most in the relationship between Lama and I was when Lama asked me to translate for him. Exactly because of what I'm talking about. Because I don't know if Lama is talking about awareness, full awareness, mindfulness, consciousness, which in Spanish is one word, conciencia, conscious.
Conscience.
So when Lama asked me to translate, I was trying to be there 150%, because what helped me to translate was that I knew his philosophy. I knew many of his teachings up to what I could understand, but good enough to say, no, he's talking about mindfulness. No, he's not talking about mindfulness. He's talking about concentration. No, he's not talking about concentration. He's talking about awareness, and so on. Anyways, that term has to be carefully analyzed, is inner scientist. He talked about Buddha as being the inner scientist. By the power of the truth, by all the human beings' attention, by all the holy beings' blessing, by Guru Buddha, inner scientist blessing, da, 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 da. The other thing that he taught me about terminology was this phrase, which was very close to what I learned in environmental economics. But he's talking about the same phrase, but in a different way. So it opened up a new thing, which was called external side effects as a form of healing. He meant that every positive action, every merit, every boon, B-O-O-N, every boon that you do, a positive move, automatically will have a positive healing effect. So your actions have side effects. So he will talk about positive side effects and not negative side effects. And that is the essence. That is the bridge in understanding the difference between Nihayana and Mahayana. And he was the greatest exponent of Mahayana. So I said, Lama, what would you recommend as a counseling of cancer? What will be the first thing a cancer patient should do? He said, don't take anything, don't go to any therapy, just go on vacation. And he explained to me very seriously what he meant. What would happen through vacation, no vacations where you're on the beach thinking about cancer. No, he's talking about the mind rests.
Relax and enjoy.
The last one, which was very important for the last few years of humanity, he said, try to transform coronavirus into karuna virus.
Karuna meaning compassion.
For me, it was so important because I'm a public persona. The terminology is very important. And let me end by saying, let's not create, interpret, or move around the essence of Lama Gangchen inner Buddha. I am very humble. I know nothing. I am nothing. I am nothing. I know nothing. And so the Buddha and Lama Gangchen taught me that one of the fundamental elements of the path to enlightenment is the complete respect of wisdom. Those who do not respect wisdom, those who do not respect Buddha's teaching, he said, they should not be taught.
Very powerful. We like to ask our guests, Alfredo, to just close with a prayer, any kind of prayer or dedication you'd like to make for this beautiful conversation.
I will sing and do a prayer that was the first prayer Lama Gangchen wanted me to memorize, because I'm not a memorizing individual. So he will say, no, this one you need to memorize. Namo Guru Pye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Guru Pye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Guru Pye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Triratnaya.
Oh, thank you so much, Alfredo. Such a beautiful, beautiful sharing your experience and your wisdom. Thank you for being a guest on our show. Just so touched by your your stories.
Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being the bridge for this to come out into the public. Thank you for allowing me to express my experience with the greatest of the greatest teacher on this planet, at least in my lifetime. And my only hope is to see him reborn soon so I can take it in my arms and say, Lama, now I have you by the handle, be a good boy.
Yes, we all eagerly await for this time. I love it. So interesting, this conversation with Alfredo and the conversation around consciousness, and that consciousness, wherever our consciousness is the base point. And we bring that with us, and everything that we see and everything that we experience in our life comes from our consciousness. So we're really looking at, is our consciousness creating a world that is improving the quality of life, or are we creating divisiveness or fear or anxiety or stress? And that our consciousness goes with us everywhere. It's how we relate to everything in our world, the people in our world, the circumstances in our world, how we relate to ourselves. So I love this conversation. Please follow along with us. And if you have a question, you can go to lamahealer.com and ask us a question. And in a future episode, we may take your question and answer that. Or if you have a story that you would like to share, you could also go to our new Facebook page, Life with a Lama Healer, and share a story there or ask us a question there. Would you like other information about our foundation, about our retreats or our teachings? We'll add some links into our description. And thanks for joining us on this podcast. I hope this was inspiring for you. Please share with your friends. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us. Lama Gangchen.